Okay, thank you all. So I'm going to go ahead and introduce our speaker for today, Nate Kennedy, who's going to share with us about Veterans Community Project and the veteran population it serves, the services it provides, and the opportunities for how the community can support its efforts. Nate is a community engagement coordinator for VCP St. Louis, where he organizes volunteers, third-party events, recruits members for VCP, Honors Corps, monthly giving program, and manages social media. That's all, right? That's all. Nate, come on up. Welcome to today's discussion.
Yes, all right. Thank you for having me here this morning. Good to be with you all. Appreciate the opportunity to speak to your organization. And so I'll just start telling you a little bit about Veterans Community Project. Can everyone hear me? Am I close enough to the microphone? All right, great. So we're a 501c3. We were organized, formed by 5 combat veterans in Kansas City, Missouri in 2016. And they believed they were working in the veteran services spaces, and they saw their brothers and sisters falling through the cracks, and they knew there had to be a better way to make sure that we were taking care of everyone who raised their hand and took the oath to serve our country. So they came up with this housing first concept and broke ground in 2018. They built 49 tiny homes in Kansas City, an outreach center and a community center for the veterans there, and we've been operational in Kansas City since then. We're expanding across the country. We're building under construction right now in phase 1 here in St. Louis. We're very close to opening our outreach center, and we have the first 20 houses standing right now. And we're going to build 50 here in addition to another community center for the residents. So we'll be the largest site to date once we get completed. We're also under construction in Longmont, Colorado, Sioux Falls, South Dakota, and we're in the early stages in Oklahoma City, as well as Milwaukee, Wisconsin. So I'll tell you a little bit about the population that we serve. These are the PIT count numbers as of January 21. That's the annual night in January where they go out to homeless camps, try to take a census of the homeless population every year. So they, this is an undercount. Obviously, it's a very hard population to account for, and of course, we believe that there's more veterans who are couch surfing or living in their car that we just couldn't account for that night. Among the homeless veteran population, we have about 85% have received an honorable discharge, and about half have a service-related disability, and about half are over the age of 51. Of course, most of those coming from the Vietnam era. And as we've had our most recent wars, of course, we're seeing a younger population come about through the homeless population and as well. So we have veterans are about twice as likely to be homeless as the average American, and female veterans are the fastest growing demographic as our armed services have become more diverse. Of course, some of the similar issues that our veterans are facing, of course, female veterans face similar issues. The sad statistic, and part of the reason why I'm involved with Veterans Community Project, is we have 20 to 22 veterans a day take their own life. And that's why I got involved. My cousin, who did 3 tours in Iraq, he was out for about 10 years, but in January 2020 just decided he was going to end it all. So that's part of the reason why I got involved here. And of course, there's a little silver lining to this statistic, but about 80% of those veterans have never reached out to a veteran services organization for help. So we know that we can reduce this number if we can just reach out to veterans and get past the stigma that receiving help that they have. It's a huge barrier in that population. Something I've heard repeatedly is that you know, those benefits are not for me, those services are not for me because I didn't do enough. You know, that's some other guy who did more. They need those services, they need that help, but it's not true. You know, it's a government-funded program. If the veterans don't use those resources, then Congress is gonna cut the funding because they're gonna think that they don't need that much money. So unfortunately, we do need these veterans to connect them with those VA services, those government services that they qualify for, as well as other services that we provide. We have a broader definition of veteran in our organization. So our solution is to create innovative transitional housing and case management, trusted active partnerships with local service providers, and find meaningful ways for the community to connect with veterans and for veterans to connect with the community. So we work in a collaborative way with other veteran services organizations. We refer in and out between those organizations. We're not trying to supplant any other services or stake out turf or anything like that. We're working cooperatively with the entire veteran services community. And our mission statement is veterans housing veterans armed with the strength and support of the community. And our vision is to end veteran homelessness, reduce veteran suicide, and transform veteran services everywhere. You know, there's a misconception about who receives benefits. Not every veteran gets the same level of benefits. For instance, if you served in the National Guard or the Army Reserves and your unit was never federally activated, for instance, like Hurricane Katrina, that's one instance where they federally activated National Guard units to help with that, or you know, some of those units did go to Iraq and Afghanistan. In those instances, yes, they would be receiving the general benefits that the other branches get, but that's not true across the board. So we define a veteran as anyone who raised their hand to take the oath to serve the country. So it doesn't matter how long you served, what branch you served in, your discharge status, or your branch of military or income status, housing status. Any veteran can come to our outreach center and meet with our case managers and work on any issue that they're facing in their life. We are primarily privately funded, and that's because we want to provide the same high level of services to every veteran in that category that we define as a veteran. There's a lot of grants out there that only serve combat veterans, for instance, or only serve those with honorable discharge. And we don't want to tie a hand behind our back and offer two tiers of services to our veterans, because we believe that if you raised your hand, if you went through the training, if you wanted to serve your country and did all that you could, then you deserve the same level of service and respect that we give everyone. There's also, you know, there's an issue with some of our supporters that think, well, I have an honorable discharge, why should someone with a less than honorable discharge receive these services? You know, I earned it, I did the right thing. But, you know, we found, as one of our co-founders, he is a lawyer by training and is now our CEO. When he was working in veteran legal services, he was helping a guy out who had a less than honorable discharge, who had 3 DWIs and got kicked out. Well, if you look at what happened there, he did 3 tours, and every time he came back from a tour, he got a DWI. So he was dealing with those issues stemming from being in that active military theater, but just, you know, didn't have the support services, didn't reach out for the support services to deal with it in the right way, and he got caught. A lot of veterans don't get caught, did the same thing, but, you know, they got that honorable discharge, and this guy was just unlucky in a lot of ways. So, you know, it's instances like that. He went and served, he did 3 tours. He has every right to receive those benefits, but unfortunately, just messed up with alcohol. So this is our village in Kansas City. We've got 49 tiny homes there, and that is the community center on the right. It's a little different than what we're building here in St. Louis. We've learned a lot of lessons from our first site here in Kansas City. We've added porches to our homes, for instance. So, and the layout that we have on our property, all the homes face each other. So it really emphasizes that sense of community within our village, and allows the veterans to connect there. You see these first couple houses on the bottom here, they face the street. There's a street here. We just don't have the same success rate from those houses for some reason. So we want to make sure that we put veterans in those houses that are a little stronger than average, and would do better than in that sort of situation. But we made sure to correct that in St. Louis. So all of our houses, we got a variance from the city to turn some of our houses around so they don't face the street, and everyone feels more connected that way and part of our community. We believe in housing with dignity. Everything we give our veterans is brand new. The clothes, the furniture, and everything that's not nailed down, screwed down, or glued down in our houses becomes the property of the veteran when they move in on day one. And all of that can go with them when they move into permanent housing. So bed, couch, chairs, refrigerator, stove, pots, pans, all of that stuff goes with the veteran to furnish their new apartment. Our houses were designed by another one of our co-founders who was dealing with PTSD. Our tiny homes, they only have windows on two sides, so no one can see in. We've got 6-inch studs for our walls, so a little extra padding in there with the insulation, a little more soundproofing. We were lucky to have the Carpenters Union help us out with that. They did all the framing, and they came out and stood the frames up for us. We've also had some donated skilled laborers from the Floor Layers Union. Their apprentices came in, and they've done the first 6 houses or so so far as well. So we're lucky to have their help in putting together the best house for the veterans that we can. We also had Hallmark Stone came out recently and donated countertops, granite countertops for our first 6 houses. That's another lesson we learned from Kansas City. The Formica doesn't hold up. Some veterans forget that pots get hot and they set them down. So we've had to replace a few of those, but we're building things to last. We're building things that the best that we can offer, because it's all about restoring that sense of dignity and pride and letting the veteran know that they're worth it. Another instance, another reason why I got involved, just the 4th of July last year, I also do music on the side. I was playing a gig down in Doniphan, Missouri on the 4th of July, and as I was setting up, a veteran came up to us, and my dad and I were there, and he'd been on the river all day. He was not having a good day. He was inebriated, but he was just started talking about everything that he'd done in the service, and do I really deserve these benefits? It just went on and on. He was not having a good time. And just that morning, coincidentally, I don't know if you all remember Jason Kander, our former Secretary of State who ran for Senate in 2016. He had released a book that morning, and I'd listened to his podcast on Mark Maron. He was on Mark Maron's podcast that day, announcing his book, talking about his struggle with PTSD and how he was running for mayor of Kansas City and had a breakdown and went to VCP to seek help because he couldn't get into the VA fast enough to get through all those barriers there. So, I just heard, it's the 4th of July, I just heard Jason Kander talk on this podcast. I go to this event, and this veteran's having a hard time, and of course at the close of my set, it ends right at dusk. I play a version of the Star Spangled Banner on electric mandolin, a la Jimi Hendrix, and the fireworks are going off, and this veteran just completely has a breakdown, and they have to bring the sheriff out. No charges were pressed, but they got him calmed down. But it was just, another instance where I just see these signs. It's like I need to work in veteran spaces and do something because to take care of these folks who went and fought in these wars, and when they come home, they just don't get the same level of care and support that we sometimes claim to give our veterans. So that's why I got involved with VCP. Here, this is the interior of one of our houses. You can kind of see the furniture and layout that I talked about with the windows and everything that we give them there. This is Chris. He's one of our residents from Kansas City, a success story. You know, we are family friendly, we are pet friendly, which is another big barrier. When you give someone a permanent address, like they will have when they move into our houses, they can petition for custody of their children. So we've been able to reunite some families. We have 10 family-sized units that are 320 square feet that sleep up to 5, and the next 40 that we're going to build are individual units that are about 240 square feet. So we work on the 5 pillars: health and well-being, income stability, fiscal understanding, education and training, and network of support. We have about 93% of our residents become income stable in the first year, for instance, and then that's on the next slide. I'm getting ahead of myself. There we go. And the average stay, these numbers are a little out of date for 2022. The average stay's moved up to about 14 months, and we have an 85% success rate of transitioning veterans into permanent housing for at least a year after they leave VCP. We have a caseworker to veteran ratio of 1 to 8, so we're able to work with these veterans every day on the barriers that they're facing. So we don't really have a time limit per se for how long they can stay with us, but you know, as long as that veteran is working the plan that they came in with and they developed with their caseworker, and as long as they're working to meet those benchmarks that they've set for themselves, you know, that's paying rent in our eyes, and they're allowed to stay as long as we're making forward progress. So that's a little bit about our village, our outreach center. You know, the village is the very visible part of our services. There's 50 tiny homes there, it's hard to miss, but we have our outreach center, which is really where all of our services begin. We will be handing out food boxes, snack packs, hygiene kits, emergency weather equipment, umbrellas, sleeping bags, shoes, things like that to veterans who come by who are either, you know, not ready or not willing to, you know, transition back into permanent housing, or if, you know, they have a trust issue, they've been burned before by other organizations and just want to get what they need to get through the day, and we're there for them. About 1 in 5 veterans is food insecure as well, so those food boxes that we hand out every month are really vital to making sure that everyone doesn't go hungry. Let's see. So these are the numbers for our Kansas City location in 21. It's actually, last year, those numbers about doubled. Coming, you know, kind of getting out of the pandemic and doing more outreach services, we're able to better connect with more veterans, and we served just over 2,500 veterans in 2022, and we handed out about 6,600 items from snack packs, food kits, those sort of things I mentioned earlier. So where we're located in St. Louis, we're at 1515 North Grand. We expect those numbers to be higher because we're on the busiest bus line in the city. Great Rivers Greenway is they're doing their brick line expansion from Fairgrounds Park down Grand, so they're gonna bump out our sidewalk. The AARP is going to put in an ADA accessible bus stop right in front of our facility, kind of like what they have in Maplewood. If you've seen that one, that's kind of fancy. So it'll be a destination bus stop, if you will. So we're a half mile up from the John Cochran VA Center, and we have a lot of pharmacies, groceries, and laundry facilities right in that area too. So very successful. See, I mentioned this earlier, our dream to end veteran homelessness, reduce veteran suicide, and transform veteran services everywhere. Yep, I mentioned this already too. Our expansion sites that we are going to around the country. And so this is kind of a map of where we're located here in St. Louis. We broke ground in September of 21. And like I mentioned, we've got the first 20 houses up. We have the first 6 of those almost complete. Those will be the family-sized units, but we're not necessarily waiting for a family to get veterans in there. We're hoping once we get the outreach center open here very soon, we're waiting on Wi-Fi and security system to be installed, and then we're moving into those offices. And as we increase our outreach services, we've already been helping some folks with emergency assistance, for instance, for short-term rental or for like car maintenance. So if there's anything we can do to prevent homelessness by keeping them in the house that they're currently in, or keeping their car running so they can get to their job, we're going to do those sorts of things as well. But anyway, once we get the outreach center up and running, then we'll start to identify our first set of residents, and we're going to move about 3 or 4 in at once to get things started in the fall. Here is a layout of our campus. You'll see Grand is on the right. We have Aldine Street that runs through the middle there. We blocked off Aldine. Every time I do this, I point at the laptop like you can tell. But we blocked Aldine there, Spring Street there, and there. So we'll have kind of a pedestrian green space in the middle there. We're working with some landscaping folks right now to lay out that center walkway. We have a big glass atrium on Grand, so that rectangle that splits that building together. You can see from Grand all the way down the main street of our village to the doors of our future community center there. So it's kind of like a bridge, kind of like a gateway between the village and the community to emphasize that visual connection that we're trying to establish. Here's some photos of our outreach center. That's a multi-purpose room there on the top left where we'll do things like have financial literacy classes, nutritional classes, credit recovery, navigating VA and DoD bureaucracy, those sorts of things. We'll have in there. There's another rendering of our village. You can see the porches that we've added onto our buildings there, and the different layouts that we have. In addition to having 10 family units that are 320 square feet, we also have 5 fully ADA units as well. Here's a picture of one of our tiny homes. And again, I want to say that we're not building tiny homes because it's a trendy thing that you've seen on HGTV or something like that, but it's a manageable space that someone coming in from the street can take control of. And if you're dealing with PTSD, you're always on patrol, always looking for a threat. But the way our house is designed, a veteran can be laying in their bed with their back to the wall, feet toward the door, kind of like they were in base housing, but they can see the whole space. They don't have to get up and patrol all the time. They can relax. They can know there's no threat lurking around a corner or in another room. They can have that sense of security with a door that locks, a roof over their head, and a warm and dry place to sleep. Here are our 5 houses, different designs. We have a color too for each branch of the military. Gray is Air Force, blue Navy, green Army, red Marines, yellow Coast Guard. And we also have some Space Force housing that's fixed in orbit. That's right over our location. So some of the community impact, to get some more numbers from Kansas City, we've had over 4,300 volunteers there. Just in St. Louis, I know our volunteer database is over 1,000 so far. So we're growing. We have groups out 3 to 4 days a week to help build our village, Wednesday through Friday and every other Saturday. So just to name a few of the folks who've come out recently. Yesterday we had the Combat Veterans Motorcycle Association. They came out, Schnucks, Phillips 66, Anheuser-Busch, Farmers Insurance. The list goes on from there. So we're really lucky to have those groups coming in and helping us out through their corporate philanthropy programs, and as well when we don't have one of those groups scheduled on our work day. We have a group of about 7 lead volunteers who are out there almost every day helping us out, kind of supervising those volunteers and make sure everything runs. But anyone on our list can come out to our open individual days. If you sign up on our website, I send out an email about once a week and let people know about those upcoming opportunities about 2 or 3 weeks out. So give you a heads up if you want to come out and help us build something, or if you all want to schedule a day as a group, I can help you all do that too, and you all come out together and work on a house. We have tasks and different projects available for any experience level. You don't have to be a master carpenter or anything. We'll teach you what you need to know for the day and go from there. Yeah, so there's other ways to support VCP and get involved with our mission. We have actually sold all of our house sponsorships for all 50 homes, so we can cross that one off the list for now. But if you'd like to host a fundraising event like we have upcoming a poker night, or one of our annual donors organizes a comedy night for us or something like that. So those sorts of events. The Daughters of the American Revolution did purse bingo a few weeks ago, so that was fun. Like I mentioned earlier, enlist the volunteer and then spread the word. We are on Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, LinkedIn, and I got a meeting on Monday with our social media team, so I guess we're going to talk about Threads probably. see what that's about. I've hopped on there for now, but I don't know about our company site yet. So, and yeah, I guess that's the end of my presentation. Any questions? Yes.
I got one. Of the states that you had mentioned in there and the cities you've mentioned, do you have plans to go outside, or if somebody's in a state you guys don't support or are currently in, is there a way to get the ball rolling if that's a place to go?
You know, it's all about, from what I understand from our national expansion team, it's about finding kind of those anchor supporters who can help us get that seed money together and things of that nature. For instance, Sioux Falls, South Dakota, it's a town of about 200,000 people, and we're there because the mayor heard about us and identified a piece of land, and they put in $500,000 worth of infrastructure in it and said, here it is, come build it. So we looked at what was going on in Sioux Falls. They already had an organization that was doing a great job of doing kind of those outreach services that I mentioned. So we're only building 25 houses and a community center there. So that's going to be, you know, what our footprint is in Sioux Falls. So we believe our services are adaptable to fit any size community and can go there. But we're a fairly young organization. As I mentioned, we got started in 2015, and so we're growing fast, and we've had a lot of support, so we're thankful for that. But trying to manage that growth and not go too fast, but also make sure that we get everywhere as soon as we can, because you know we have an 85% success rate in turning our lives around, which is a lot higher than you'll find in a lot of other organizations. So we want to get out there and do what we can to answer your question. Yes.
I'm wondering, first of all, whose idea this was, and if the VA itself is friendly and has a good reciprocity relationship with you?
Yes. We have 5 co-founders. They're on our website. Brian Meyer is one of our current CEO is one of those co-founders, as well as Vinny, and excuse me, I'm blanking on his last name right now, but he's our director of services. So they're 2 of our founders who are still very much involved in the organization. As far as working with the VA and everything, yes, we have that relationship there, and we work well with them. There's several organizations in the St. Louis area that kind of work to bring together all those groups, so we're aware of all of our services and know where the resources are if we don't have something immediately, or if someone else has a program that better fits what this veteran needs. We'll talk to that organization and see if they're able to assist in those sorts of ways. So we're, our services team, we just hired 2 more case managers. We have a new director starting on Monday, so that'll be more than half of our team will be services at that point, and they all have experience working in the St. Louis Veteran Services spaces. So it's not a very big community. Everyone knows everyone, and they try to work well together and make sure that we're doing the best we can for our veterans. Yes.
You mentioned that, I understand, in a village, you might have independent homes in some of the villages. What is that about?
Individual houses.
Yeah.
There's two sizes of houses. There's the family size that sleeps up to 5, that's 320 square feet. Then there's the individual home, that'll be 40 houses, where just a single individual will live.
And maybe I misunderstood, it was
Yeah.
not independent of your organization
No.
that people live there.
You know, they're all,
Okay, so it's not
yeah.
integrated in the true sense within the
you
community.
know, it's all transitional
Right.
housing, yeah.
Right.
Where we started in Kansas City, we're at 89th and Troost. If you know Kansas City, that's kind of the south end of the city. Troost is like their Del Mar, for instance. So kind of one of those historic dividing lines in the city. But they've been able to, since they started, property values have doubled and crime has gone down. So it is helping out that neighborhood there in those sorts of macro senses way. Yes.
Who are you working with for financial literacy services?
We have, you know, every bank that's come out has definitely wanted to get involved with that program and offer some services. We'll have to talk to our services team exactly how that's going to look when we get operational. I know Commerce Bank wants to do it. We've also had US Bank. Those are two that we've worked with recently, and I know that there's a lot. Of course, there's the Community Reinvestment Act, which mandates that they put some money back into the community. So they're always looking for opportunities like ours to help out. So yes,
You said your average stay was 14 months?
yes.
So, and I noticed how large a number of veterans you've served in such a short period of time. Does that mean some veterans, I'm assuming that some veterans are taking a much longer time to adjust, and some are actually having very, very short stays before they
Yes.
get their feet. What, I mean, if you were to say like,
Some of the shortest stays has been about 2 to 3 months, and you know the longer ones get closer to 2 years. That's kind of the maximum and minimum span. And as far as the ages we've served, our youngest veteran has been 20 years old, and our oldest veteran has been 93. So you know, it just there's a lot of very different programs. what we do, we help the 20-year-old get into college, for instance. And the 93-year-old, you know, they were working with his health issues and getting his end-of-life paperwork together and that sort of thing. And we're looking for a veteran home to place him in. So it's just, you know, a wide variety of issues that we work with.
Do you have, I have two questions. Do you have a wait list for your homes currently? Because you said you're almost done here. How's that process work?
No, there is no wait list, and there won't be a wait list, because we want the veteran to, if they're, you know, one of the biggest indicators that they're going to be successful and that you know, we want them in our homes is that they're willing and ready to make that change. And so if they are working on those things, we want them to keep working on those things. You know, there's some paperwork involved once we identify them as a good candidate, so it's not like we can't get them in like the same day, unfortunately. But you know, we want them to continue to work with other VSOs and to work with our caseworkers to work on those issues that they're facing. If someone thinks that, look, in 3 months they're going to have a bed for me, so I just don't need to do anything in the meantime, no, we want them to keep going forward and seeking help and trying to get those things turned around. So, yes.
So how do you find clients? Like, how do you find out who's homeless in the community and use your services?
Yeah, so we will go out into the homeless camps and do outreach and things like that. In the future, we already have 1 or 2 veterans walking up on site every day or every week, you know, asking, you know, when things are going to be done, looking for help. So our services team is working with them and doing referrals and those emergency assistance funds, as I mentioned. We just put the sign on our building last month, so that's increased some of that traffic as well. We're hopefully, once we get into that office and get those services up and running, in a few months we'll do a grand opening. There's a little confusion right now. The city has another similar type homeless shelter, but those are really, they're not as nice. They're like tough sheds. There's no indoor plumbing or anything like that. So there's like communal bathrooms and things like that. It's a pretty rough situation. And I heard personally from at least one veteran who went down there thinking that was us, and they were saying, you know, this is, you know, he didn't want to live there. He was looking for something else, but we were able to help him out with some short-term rent and stuff like that to keep him housed in the meantime. But yeah, we do need to do some more outreach. It's kind of a, you know, we've had some ribbon cuttings in Sioux Falls and Longmont in May, and we are, you know, a good problem to have is there's a lot of outpouring of support in that moment when we finally put it out there. So we want to be prepared to receive that and have our systems in place, so that we don't lose track of any opportunities that come our way as we start to promote and market our services out there. But we, you know, between social media and the walk-ins that we've had so far, you know, the word is getting out there, but we're going to do a lot more here soon.
I'm curious how many, in your homes, what's the percentage of women to men?
I don't know. I can look that up. I think I have that on an info sheet, and I can get that to you later.
If veterans don't need housing assistance but could use other things from you, do they have to come to you, or are they able to do that remotely?
Can they do it remotely? You know, I think having an in-person meeting with the caseworker, I mean, they could do it over the phone. It just kind of depends on a case-by-case basis. We evaluate those as they come in.
Okay.
As we, you know, we've had several over-the-phone interviews and in-person interviews. We've had to go to them because our temporary offices aren't the best situation for having those kinds of meetings and privacy and things like that. So, yeah, it just kind of depends on what the situation is. We look at everything on a case-by-case basis and make the plan based on what's best for that veteran, and not try to put them in a program that we've already created.
So the services in the community center itself, are those available to people who aren't yet in the housing? I mean, do you have the capacity to help people who are still on the street? Like if all your units are full, but somebody could use the financial counseling and all those things, are they still able to access those?
Yeah, absolutely, absolutely. Yeah, the outreach center, again, you know, that we're going to be helping thousands of veterans through the outreach center every year. And, you know, unfortunately, we've only got 50 houses, so we can, you know, do about 40 or 45 veterans at a time. There'll be a few that'll always be unoccupied in case a maintenance issue comes up that we have to fix, or just as we transition people in and out, it takes some time to do that. As in Kansas City, they have a team of volunteers that come in and help them move all that furniture out into their new place, go in and do a deep clean of that house, and then put the new stuff in. So that takes about a week to get turned around. So there'll be a little breathing room, I guess, in our housing stock as we go forward.
Do the banks who volunteer, are they doing the financial education, or are they just like, you can have a checking account with us?
Again, that's going to be determined once we get it going. We haven't actually had any of those yet. You know, I'm sure there is an incentive for the banks. I don't want to say anything out of turn here, but you know, there are a lot of benefits and things that these veterans need to pull down if they are unbanked. You know, getting them hooked up with those services is definitely something we need to do to help their financial stability. So, you know, it just depends on what the situation is. I don't know if we have an official, we probably won't have an official referral to any particular bank, but we'll glad to receive any help that they can give. Yes.
USAA seems like a strong referral source for people with a service record. When you design and select sites for these communities, do you select them based on any kind of scalability, that if the 50 homes now, but if we need to expand to 100 homes, we've already kind of earmarked adjacent properties? Do you have any intention of scaling these communities to be larger, or are you hoping to rather than having a single large community project, would you prefer to have a separate 50 home community and it serving a different part of town?
Yeah, that conversation is a little bit over my head. You know, that stuff that's going to happen on the national level, and I'm not privy to those land acquisition conversations. So, you know, I wasn't here with the organization when they selected this site, but I know they had to put, these were 37 different parcels that were in 2 zip codes and 3 wards when we first started. So, yeah, I don't don't know if we necessarily got our mail system worked out yet, but it's going to take some doing as we have, you know, I guess technically 51 addresses at that site, and across 2 zip codes. So it'll be interesting, but hopefully we can work something out with the Postal Service on that. After they've redistricted the wards, we are now just in 1 ward, but you know, there's some issues there. I think, you know, proximity to the VA was probably part of the plan, as well as finding we've got about 4 acres there, 4 contiguous acres, and so we're working with the city land bank and those sorts of things. There were a few burned down buildings on the property. Of course, we have to tear those down, but you know, it's just looking at that sort of thing.
How hard was it to consolidate into 1 ward? I mean, were they the different wards trying to push you into the other ward, or were they welcoming you into theirs, or?
I don't know if our location played into the redistricting process at all, but we have, you know, everything that we've needed from the city council has been unanimous approval. So we're very have a lot of support from the city, from the mayor, from our alderwoman Laura Keys. So, and I mentioned Jason Kander. You know, he's friends with Tashara Jones from their time in the state legislature. So she's been really supportive of us. Yes.
I just wanna let you know that we have an ethical action committee here, and, organizing a workday sounds like something that we would really be interested in doing, so I'll be in touch with you. And I wanted to let everybody else know that Nate brought literature, there's some on the wooden table there up in the upper right, and there's some more in the lobby, if anybody wants brochures or a flag.
Thank you, Nate,
Thank
everybody.
you.